listening to the Rising Moms podcast, where we believe trading the endless to-do list for a life with intention can help you rise above the chaos and the overwhelm. My goal is that you walk away from each one of these episodes feeling so empowered to create more joy in your life and give yourself the permission to live into the very best possible version of you. Are you ready? Because together we're about to rise. Hello, hello. I am so excited to be back with you and to jump in and dive into another episode. I am excited for you to hear from Jess today, all about kind of stepping into our purpose and stepping into our authentic selves and being able to speak up even when it's really uncomfortable and all of that. I know in the episode, Jess and I kind of jump right on in. So I want to forewarn and apologize that there was not much of a heads up or a warning as to where we were headed or what we were doing, and tried to circumvent and come back around there at some point in the episode, but it's still so powerful. And we get into so much as the episode goes on that I think it's going to be really powerful for you to realize your potential and realize that when you are feeling exhausted and frustrated and worn out and depleted, that it's not serving anybody. It's not serving you. It's not serving your family. It's not serving anybody. And so when we're in this place of feeling like we're martyred for everybody else around us and we're just feeling wiped out, that it's really not the best for anybody. And so when we can find that thing that makes us super unique and that makes us like how we can step into ourselves and be authentic and know who we are and live with purpose and do that, has so much influence and has so much ripple effect onto everybody else around us. It's what's going to help us be the best mom that we want to be. It's going to be the thing that helps us raise the best kids that we can possibly raise, and just so much. So I'm excited for this episode. If you don't know Jess already, she's an online course strategist and a coach that helps other online coaches and course creators stand out online so that they can be their true selves, create their own signature methodology and magnetic messaging, and really just ultimately create the life that they want. And so I'm excited to have her here. And I hope that even if this episode was not super straight linear, that our roundabout conversation will definitely help you walk away with some practical tools that you can do and some just inspiration that you are completely 100% worthy of living and fulfilling your purpose, whatever that might be. All right. Well, Jess, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm super excited to have you here on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Yes. So I would love for everybody listening. I know you and I have connected through a mutual platform online and business coaching and things like that. But I would love for everybody else that's listening that doesn't know who you are already, go ahead and just introduce yourself. Let us know who you are.
Awesome. Thank you. So my name is Jess O'Connell. I am an online business coach and course strategist for women who want to take back control of their circumstances. I started my business about 18 months ago after my husband lost his job. And I was a stay-at-home mom working a network marketing business, not fairly effectively. And my $1,000 a month income was not going to pay our mortgage and our bills and keep food on the table for my two kids. And so I had a this is it moment for me. I was like, I will never again let these circumstances and somebody else control my family's security and my family's circumstances. So that really made me put my boots on and figure out what my thing was and go all in with my online business. And in my first year, I made $100,000 and I decided that this was going to work for us. And now my husband went back to work while I was building my business and I was able to bring him home just a year later. And so now he's home with us full time, hanging with our kids right now while I am on this amazing podcast.
That's so awesome. And I think that it's such a beautiful story and something many moms probably aspire to be able to do. Just out of curiosity, do you know what Enneagram number you are?
So this is such a good question. I self-identify as a 3.
Okay.
But I think that I lean to a 3 because I think it's that thing, when you're in stress, you turn into whatever. Because my 3 is get shit done. I just want to achieve more and do more. And that was activated in me. I don't know what I am outside of that. I think I lean to 5, but I don't know. I don't know that much about Enneagram, but I think I'm a 3.
Okay. I was just curious because you said something about never wanting to be, I don't know what the word you said. You wanted to be independent, never wanted to be tied down or whatever it was. And I know that the 8, that's one of their big things is not wanting to be controlled. And so I've been trying to identify exactly what I am in terms of Enneagram. And I was thinking about, I'm like, gosh, that is, I think, one of the huge driving motivators behind me is that sense of control. So I was just kind of curious if it was the same for you.
I want to dig more into it. I know James Wedmore had a podcast recently about it, and I was listening to it. And that was what made me realize that maybe my 3 isn't my safety state. And maybe that's where I when I feel threatened, I have to achieve more and do more and kind of be the best. And it's definitely not the most positive quality, but I think that it is my get shit done quality. And so I'm definitely curious about that. I'm not sure which one I am, but I do want to dig more into it. Have you done Myers-Briggs?
Yes. And I love that. I feel like the Myers-Briggs, I can be oh, this is me, is the INFJ.
Nice. I'm an INTJ.
Okay. So we're very similar. So I feel and that maybe is why you said that we have those same similar qualities. But anyway, we digress. I know that today we were going to talk a lot about women and stepping into, and I guess this kind of maybe ties into that conversation we were having in terms of being able to speak up and know who we are and being really grounded in who we are. And so why do you think it's so hard? Why do you think that women struggle so much with fully embracing who they are and stepping into that role?
So this is where things are going to get a little bit weird, but I think that it's kind of twofold. I think that we tell ourselves these stories when we're kids. I mean, I have kids and I have a daughter who's almost 5, and I tell her all the time, be quiet, you're too much, calm down. And I feel these messages that our parents meant nicely, because we were probably driving them crazy, we internalize as kids and we're oh, I'm too loud, I'm too much, I'm too this. And we allow it to sink deep into our psyche and kind of screw us up in the ways that we don't realize we're screwing our kids up. And so we internalize that and we're okay, if I'm too loud, then I need to quiet my voice. Or if I, in order to be loved, I have to be quiet and I have to say what's right. And we learn all of these lessons when we're kids. And when we don't have the adult perspective of be quiet means talk quieter. It doesn't mean stop talking. And then I think the other part of it is ancestral trauma, which is where it gets weird that we literally carry trauma in our bodies from our ancestors. And I think that because our mothers were oppressed and our grandmothers were oppressed, I mean, if you think about it, our grandmothers didn't have the right to vote. Our great grandmothers fought for that, right? And so it's not that far removed from us. And so speaking up and having a voice and standing out has been counter to our history and to our ancestry for years and years and years. And just now, are we in a place where it's acceptable for a woman to kind of stand out and to say what she wants to say and have a voice? And that wasn't true. Even in the 90s, that wasn't true. And so it's still very fresh. And so I think it's a combination of that childhood internalized trauma of who we need to be good and acceptable and lovable. And then also just our ancestral upbringing, of just women being silenced and told to sit down and shut up.
Well, and I guess I probably should have segued into this question a little bit better before I started it because, I was thinking about it as we were talking and as we started going and was wow, I just kind of jumped right into that. But I think that what I have seen so much is just undermining what they're able to do or undermining that their voice matters regardless of what it is. And that is where I feel where we were tapping into. And so for everybody listening, sorry, we just jumped right on in that.
Just 3 minutes in, ancestral trauma, internalized childhood trauma.
We just dug right in. But Jess and I have been talking for like 20 minutes before, so that's probably
It's
part of
true.
where it went. But I do think it's really important for moms and for women in general to understand those things that matter the most to us and to feel okay stepping into that. And also being like, even going back to those personality things we were talking about in the beginning, is understanding who we are and understanding what makes us us, and being okay stepping into that authentic self of ourselves and how it's different from other people. And that's okay. And that's part of it. So I guess kind of like going even more, like I know you talk a lot about in terms of business with many of your clients and things like that, about getting super laser focused and focusing in on those things that matter the most to you and like spending your time and your energy there versus getting distracted by a million and one different things. So as a mom, I think that that's key and that's super important as well. So how do we do that? And why do you think that it's so important for us to kind of do that?
I think that, so really quickly to touch back on your first question that I didn't actually get to with my crazy answer, was that like on top of all of that, we also hold back because we're afraid of not being accepted, right? And so we don't feel like we're worthy of wanting what we want. And that comes from being a kid and all of that internalized stuff. But also like we're afraid to stand out, and we're afraid to like say something different than other people because we so deeply want to be accepted. And so fighting that nature and leaning into the discomfort of people not liking you is scary, right? And being like, I'm going to put myself out there and people might not like it, and that has to be okay. And so we can go deeper into that after I answer your other question, which now I'm trying to remember. So why, or what can we do as moms to laser focus and really focus on the things?
Yeah. And like focus in on what makes us us, and like why does that matter? And like how do you focus in on that without getting distracted by all of the other things like other people are doing, or if that makes sense?
Totally makes sense. So I think that motherhood is a really jarring event in your life, right? Like I think that you guys did not sign up for how woo-woo this is. And I just want to apologize in advance if you're just like, oh my God, this lady is crazy. But we exist energetically, like in a very volatile state. And so our energy is always moving and shifting, and we are always moving and shifting through our reality. And so in motherhood, it's a very hyper, like it's a life changing thing. Obviously, we've all been through that. And it really causes your energy and your identity to shift. And you start to, in the most positive way possible, as like a way of coping with the trauma of having this child and like going through childbirth and early motherhood, like we kind of shut off parts of our identity so that we can hyper focus and take care of this little human. And when we do that, that's when we start to lose ourselves, right? That's that feeling of like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And it's because that event of giving birth and becoming a mother shifted our energy so much that we laser focused on like, I just got to keep this little person alive. I don't even care if I used to like to paint, like that has nothing to do with keeping the person alive. As mothers, like there comes a point where your mission is no longer keep the little baby alive. And it is to like, who the heck am I? And returning into yourself and like this realignment with who you're truly meant to be. And it, because it's so shifty and because it's so easy for us to let go of identities, which kind of is a superpower, right? Like if things aren't serving you, women can let them go because our energy and our identity is so fluid. And so we tend to pick up on what other people are doing or other people are saying just because we think that being like other people makes us acceptable. It makes us a part of that pack. And so when you really want to tap into what your thing is and what you stand for, it kind of takes a grounding in who you are and what you believe in. And when you really get quiet and you ask, like, what do I stand for? What is important to me? What do I stand against? Like, if you can't quite figure out what you stand for, be like, what do you stand against? And that will really make it clear what you stand for. Hold those convictions as tightly as possible, and then look for opportunities that further those convictions. And I know a lot of people who get into situations that are not in alignment with their convictions because they didn't take the time to ask themselves, like, what do I want? What do I stand for? And what am I here for? And when we don't take that time to connect with that and really ask ourselves, then that's when we get into situations where we're doing the things out of alignment, or we spend 5.5 years growing a health and fitness business when that's not even close to a passion of yours. So I think that we just kind of jump on the things that we think that we need to do in order to be liked, in order to be accepted and loved. That's when we're acting out of alignment from our true purpose. And when you can get that grounded in who you are and work further toward your purpose, that's when you find your thing.
Hey mama, just a quick interruption into this episode. Chances are, if you're like me or any of the clients that I've worked with when we started working together, there have been plenty of days when you found yourself just counting down and praying for bedtime, counting down those minutes till it all went away and you could have just a little bit of a peace and sanity. Maybe you could sit on the couch without having a million people jumping on you, or go to the bathroom without somebody bounding down the door. But then as you're sitting there in the peace and quiet, you look around and realize there's still so much more to do. It can start to feel like just this ever-going hamster wheel or Groundhog Day of the same thing each and every single day. You may have even had questions pop into your head like, is this really all that there is to motherhood? Am I really cut out for this? Do I have to live with this constant state of chaos and mess and overwhelm every single day? And don't even get me started on those moments when you might feel really frustrated and irritated and start resenting your kids or resenting your spouse because of all the list and the endless things that you have to do and the weight of all that you're carrying. If you have said yes to any one of these, I want to offer you some hope, and I want to invite you into a free training where I'm going to show you the 3 key ingredients that you need in your life that are going to help take you from this place of feeling overwhelmed and burned out and exhausted and frustrated each and every single day, feeling like that endless list of stuff just never goes away. There's stuff friggin' everywhere, and how you can transform that into having more peace within your home, sanity inside your head, more presence with your kids, more connection, and feeling like overall you still have a cleaner house in the midst of it. And beyond all of that, feeling like each day you wake up feeling so full of joy and so full of purpose, and knowing that you are enough exactly as you are. So when you join me on this free training, I'm going to give you all of that. I'm going to give you those 3 key ingredients so that you can implement that into your life and find more joy as early as the very next day. So when you go over to reneefik.com/joyful motherhood, you're going to be able to save your seat into this epic training that will completely transform your day and completely transform your motherhood. There is absolutely no reason that any mother should be living in just survival each and every single day. And I want to show you how you can do that, how you can go to that place of thriving and so full of life and so full of joy every single day. I agree. And I think that so much of it is exploring. Like, even like at the beginning, we talked about your personality tests and like understanding those and understanding how you're different and how you're unique. Like, I used to look at some of my friends who were super extroverted. And I can remember this one particular friend, like we would be in a big social gathering, a big group, and I would talk with her. And at the end of the night, I'd leave and be like, oh my gosh, I have no clue what's happening in her life, because she asked so many questions of me and was so good about making me feel seen and heard that I have no clue what's happening for her. And at the time, I used to shame myself and guilt myself and be like, gosh, I wish I could be better about making other people feel seen and heard like she does. And what I realized is that's one of her really good strengths. Like, that's something that she loves, and that's what makes her unique. And so rather than comparing myself to that and wishing, I mean, you can always work towards better skills, but rather than like comparing and making myself feel bad, I stepped into like, okay, where am I good? And how can I strengthen the skills that I already have and laser into those instead of just feeling stuck by everybody else's. But I think you brought up a lot about just like exploring and sitting in that. And so I know for many moms, like you talked about in that beginning phase when you're feeling like, how do I just keep this little person alive? It can feel really overwhelming and really scary. And not sure what to do. And even thinking outside of that is impossible. So when was that shift that for you that you noticed where you started to, or you see it in other moms where they start to shift from that place of just being like, oh my gosh, all of it is just keeping my baby person alive to, okay, now I can start thinking about myself? Or do you see sometimes maybe moms never do that?
I really think that sometimes moms never do that. We never take the time to say, you know what, like the baby can live without me today, and maybe I can start pouring into my own cup. And that's when we find burnout in women who really like struggle with motherhood, is because they never realize that it's a phase and that they just have to focus for a short amount of time and then they can start to live their life again. I don't necessarily want to put a time frame on it because I don't want to shame any women who are still in that place, right? Maybe your baby's 9 months old and you're like, yeah, no, I'm cool. Like I leave him with the sitter, I'm down. And maybe your baby is 3.5 and you're like, I'm still stuck here. And so I don't think that there's a right or a wrong, but I will say that your body and your soul knows. So if you are feeling called to reignite your fire and to figure out who the heck you are, that means you're ready. And I think that we have this misconception in society that ready is the same thing as feeling prepared. And I think that they're very different things. When you're ready is when you have the idea, when you have the inkling, when you feel that nudge, that's ready. And instead, we're waiting to feel prepared. We're waiting for the right time. We're waiting for all the tools. We're waiting for the knowledge, right? We're waiting for all of that to feel ready. You're already ready. You aren't prepared. And when you decide, like, you know what, I'm ready, that's when you can start to become prepared. And so that misconception, if you're feeling like, you know what, like I need to start finding myself again. You're ready, sister? Like, let's do it. And I think that recognizing that and taking action from that state of readiness, even if you're not prepared, is how you will find out. Nothing will come like a stagnant body. I'm like mixing analogies here, but like something that is standing still is much harder to move than something that's already in motion. And so if you decide you're ready and you get the motion started, that clarity will come to you. The more movement you take, the more clarity you get. And sometimes it's the contrast that brings that clarity. If you do something and you're like, this is not me, that's how you know what is for you, right? Then if that's not you, then what is? And I think that opening up yourself up to feeling like you're not ready and feeling like you're not good at something and kind of embracing that suck feeling. And that's how you get better. And as people in general shy away from experiences that we don't want to feel like we suck at things. So we just don't do anything. And that's why we continue to suck at things.
It's so true. It's so true. Like being in that place of feeling like you failed until you can rewrite, you said, those beliefs and those stories. I remember being in class and I don't even remember where it started, but I can remember I hated raising my hand because I didn't want to be the person that was called on with the wrong answer. Like there was something so visceral inside of me that I did not want to do that. So I kind of learned this belief that like, if I raise my hand and I'm wrong, it's the worst thing ever. And so I just like, as time went on, and I can't remember, I think it was an exercise that James did. And I remember him saying, like, thinking back to whatever. And it was like this moment that I had in college where I would refuse to raise my hand because I was afraid to be wrong. And how I didn't realize like how much that sticks with you and how much those little things that, like you said, like we don't want to put ourselves into a place where we feel uncomfortable. So rather than stepping out and trying something, we'll just close our hands and never raise our hand.
And I'm sure there was an instance when you were a kid where you raised your hand and you got it wrong and you were chastised for it. And maybe classmates laughed and the teacher made you feel bad about it. And you were like, never again am I raising my hand unless I'm certain of the answer.
So I know we've already kind of touched a little bit on what happens if we don't step into ourselves, right? Like that burnout and that feeling just overwhelmed and exhausted and like lacking joy. Is there any other things that you see that would happen if somebody doesn't step in when they feel that little call or they feel that little inkling of ready and they don't go down that path of kind of figuring out who they are? Like, what are some of the ramifications of that?
I think one of the biggest ones that, and I don't want to scare anybody, but I think one of the biggest ones that can happen is that feeling will go away. That ready feeling and that inkling that you have isn't a permanent thing. And the longer you ignore it, the more you settle into the comfort of being uncomfortable. It's kind of like a baby because we all have kids. We understand that. Like right after they poop in their diaper, they're pretty cranky about it. But then 20 minutes in, if nothing changes, they keep going on with their life. They no longer care if their diaper is poopy and they just sit there and it festers and they get a diaper rash and it's uncomfortable later. But like while being in the poopy diaper, it doesn't hurt any more than it did in the very beginning. And so by ignoring that inkling, you may not notice that anything has changed, right? You're like, no, I'm just going to stay safe and comfortable, even though I low key hate my life. Like, it's fine here. I'm fine. We all walk around in this I'm fine coma. And no one's really fine, right? We're either great because we're living our purpose and we love our lives, or we are dying inside. Fine is like, I'm dying inside, but I don't want to bother anybody with my pain. And so we sit with this crap in our diaper for years, right? And then at some point, like it bubbles up and it festers. This is the grossest analogy I've ever made. So I'm sorry. But like
it's just picturing and imagining a poopy diaper like festering
like
and exploding. Oh, yes.
Wonderful. We've all been there, right? And then like it's really uncomfortable down the road. And I think that you'll wake up and be 45 and have grown kids and be like, what did I do with my life? Like, this is my life. And that's why our mothers and other women who are older get divorced. Like, your kids are out the door and you don't know who you are. You don't know who your husband is. And your whole life has this upheaval. And I'm not saying if you don't follow your purpose, you're going to get divorced. But I am saying that, like, if you don't take care of this now, it's just going to keep getting worse. And you will wake up as an adult with grown kids and be like, what happened? And do we really want to waste the next 15 years of our lives because we're afraid that some girl we went to high school might think we're weird for standing up for what we believe in? Like, what is she doing? Right? I heard this analogy. I didn't like it because it's a terrible analogy, but it's a thing that actually happens. It's like a parable about crabs. So if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, they'll all just stay in the bucket until one of them starts to climb out. And then instead of like pushing the crabs out of the bucket, the crabs will actively pull the crab trying to get out of the bucket because they're more comfortable where everybody is safe and they don't want to see somebody else trying to get out of the bucket. And it's a safety thing. It's a crab thing. But like women often take the role of crabs. And when we see another woman climbing out of the bucket, it's our instinct to pull her down, right? How many women in your life have seen you rise up and have done nothing but try to pull you down? And it's not vindictive. It's not intentional. It's just this group mentality of when other people start to shine, they shine on our shadow. They make us feel all the things that we've been trying not to feel. It's woman nature to pull the crabs, pull it down from the bucket so that they don't rise up. And we have to rise up anyway. And we have to show them that because I rose up, you can too. And by choosing to let go of the crabs that are holding you back and step up anyway and say, I don't need you to understand me and I don't need you to do it with me, but I'm going to show you what's possible. And I'm going to become the proof so that if you have that inkling, if you feel ready, you can climb out of the bucket and you can start to shine. And you'll then be the proof of what's possible.
I think it's so powerful to look at that way. Even today, I was like doing a podcast interview with somebody and I realized like basically almost verbatim, our messages are almost the exact same in a lot of ways. And I was sitting there and when I was recording the intro after the fact, I was like, gosh, it's so many times people would look at this and think that she's my competitor, right? Like we have almost identical messages. And yet how when we can step out of that space of seeing other women as competitors and seeing them more as liaisons and how her rising helps me rise and back and forth. And like when we can step into that space, it's so powerful, so much powerful. We need to find an analogy of animals that stack on top of each other and get out of the bucket. But I think it's so powerful when we can step into that space. And I know you and I both have like huge visions and huge things and feel this like strong sense of not achieving necessarily, but we have big goals and big dreams. And I know that sometimes, like moms, when you may be listening to this, that may feel really overwhelming and may feel daunting and may feel uncomfortable, even just to think like that. And like, I don't want to shine. I don't want to be outside my comfort zone, or like not even get outside your comfort zone, but it just feels too big. So for the mom that's like at home, that doesn't have big, huge goals and dreams, but yet can still step into this like authentic person of who they are and like live out that purpose, what can they do? Or like, how can they take all of this and see like, if this doesn't matter if you are trying to create something huge or if you're just living in your house each and every single day, the message is still the same, like that you still can step into your true authentic self and shine as you are and who you were created to be. I don't know if I totally twisted that, but that
No, you're perfect. I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by like, I want to shine and I want to own my purpose and I want to step into my power, but like, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want people following me. And I think that we think of the word, I don't know how I feel about the word influencer. I just had a moment there where I was like, I don't like the word influencer. And then I was like, actually, I think it's the connotation of the word influencer. We think of an influencer as somebody who wears a lot of makeup and uses a lot of filters and goes fancy places and takes pictures. I would almost venture to say, is that the phrase that I'm looking for, that those people are not actually influencers. They're not influencing anybody. They are unpaid Instagram models, right? And so those people are not actually influencing anybody. But you as a woman who is in her power and who stands for something and who is not afraid to be herself, you are influencing your circle. You're influencing your daughters. You're influencing your sons. You're influencing your sisters. You're influencing your brothers. You're influencing your mom. You're influencing your grandparents. You're influencing your friends. You're influencing their friends. And the ripple effect that you can make by stepping up and being in your power and showing them like, this is what a happy woman looks like, who is living her truth and owning what she's about and what she stands for. That ripple effect across your circle changes lives and it changes your kids, right? Like your daughters will grow up to be in their power and they won't lose the sight of themselves and they will demand more for their lives and their daughters' lives. And your sons will find women who are empowered and they will treat women differently. Like the ripple effect of you deciding that I am worth standing up for, I am worth shining my own light. And it doesn't mean that I have to have 100,000 followers on Instagram. All that matters is that you are living your truth and your purpose in your heart. And that influence is so much greater than it would be if you were taking pictures on the gram.
100%. And I think that that's where sometimes as moms, we don't really realize that influence, and not to make it feel scary and overwhelming, but we are influencing and shaping the next generation of people. And so what they are going to go forward as and what they're going to think, not to say that they're going to think everything exactly the same way we do, but that we're going to help shape their path and that direction, and how that is really powerful to look at that influence that we have. And if we're coming from this place of really understanding and knowing who we are and living in, like you said, into that purpose, that creates such a different interaction than if we feel burnt out and exhausted and overwhelmed all the time.
And if you don't think kids feel energy, check your kids' attitude when you're having a bad day, right? Kids are so tuned into the energy of other people and the moods of other people that when you shine, even just being in a better space, your family is happier. And I see this so much because I get in bad moods, right? And as soon as I'm overwhelmed, I have anxiety. And so that overcomes me sometimes. And when I'm having an anxious day, my daughter's having a bad day and my little daughter's having a bad day. And like, it's just this ripple effect of the energy in our house is not great. But when I'm having a great day, she's happier. She's more present. She's more patient with her sister. Like, kids are so energetic that even if you think you're faking it, and even if you think that they can't tell that you are dying on the inside. They can. They can smell your poopy diaper to bring it back around. And it affects them too. And so by being happy and being whole in your heart, that makes them happier and whole in their hearts too.
100%. And I remember, I don't even know where it came from, but years ago, I remember hearing this thing that said that the dominant energy in a boardroom, like in a corporate boardroom, the dominant energy in the room will change the energy of everybody else in the room within 2 minutes or 10 seconds, or I don't even remember the exact stats, but it's like uber fast. And so there's been times, like you said, like the whole house will be all out of whack. And so taking it on myself, I'm like, be the dominant energy, like set the tone for what I want the house to be. And it's amazing how if I set that intention to make sure that I'm in a good place, that how that does ripple to everybody else in my home and it changes everything versus, what is it? If mom's unhappy, everybody's unhappy, but it's completely true. If mom's unhappy, you set the tone for the whole rest of the family. All right. As we get kind of close to the end, is there any last thing that you want to make sure you share?
I think that if I could share anything with your audience, it's that they are worthy. And this is something that you were born with, right? You've never held your baby in the hospital. You have this brand new shiny baby and you're like, you know what, kid? Haven't worked a day in your life. You're just not that worthy. And it's like, what? You would never say that, right? You were born worthy in your mother's arms and your children are worthy. And we decide at some point that we are not worthy. And we adopt these strategies in order to become worthy, right? By overworking or by being people pleaser or by being quiet, right? So tapping into what are the things that I am doing that I feel like I have to do in order to be worthy? What are the strategies that I've adopted? And how can I recognize those and shift out of those behaviors? Because they're probably toxic behaviors. People pleasing, not helping anybody. Trying to prove your worth, not helping anybody. And so self-sabotaging, all of these things are these strategies like, well, if I put everybody in front of me, then maybe I'll be happy or I'll be worth it. They'll think I'm lovely, right? We spend money because we don't think we're worthy. If you can start to take a look at the things that you do and the strategies you've adopted in order to feel worthy, then you can start to heal them and realize that you are enough. And one of the most powerful things I've ever written in my journal that I go back to regularly, and in fact, it's so powerful, I'm going to read it because it's so powerful how I wrote it, is I know enough, I am enough, I give enough, I've proven enough, it is enough. And if you can repeat that to yourself for some version of it, I am enough, I know enough, I give enough, I love enough, it is enough. I think that the more that you say that to yourself and the more that you own this fact that whatever it is on your heart to do, it was given to you for a reason. You are ready for it and you are enough. You are enough. You are worthy of it. And when you can own that and step into it and start to heal the strategies that you've developed, trying to make yourself enough and realize that you already are enough, you were born enough, you'll die enough, it is enough, that's when you'll change your life.
100%. I feel like when I have these podcast interviews, I'm always like, yes, I needed this. So thank you so much, Jess. It was amazing. And I know, I'm hoping everybody else is on the other end listening going like, yes, I needed this, just like I needed it. So if people want to connect with you and find you, where can they do that?
So you can find me on Instagram at jess.o'connell_. And I also have a podcast called Decide to Rise, which is all for women who are ready to let go of the things that are holding them back and step into their power and build an impactful business that can enable them to be in control of their life, like I talked about.
Awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Rising Moms podcast today. To dive into the show notes for this episode and other episodes, head on over to therisingmoms.com. And if you loved this episode, would you share it with a friend? The more, the merrier. And don't forget, when you leave us those reviews, it enables us to reach so many other women with this message that together we can rise above the overwhelm and rise above the chaos and truly live into the person we were created to be. So go on out there, friend, and create a life you love.